All right, for this hand, we're in the small blind again, and the reg is to our left, and the recreational player is on the button, and he folded pre-flop. This is a good hand, in my opinion, to limp, so it's pretty much standard. And this is a very good spot for us to put out a limp stab. I choose to go for a slightly bigger sizing, but the reason why this board texture in particular is a very good board to limp stab is because Bullen's range is going to be pretty weak here once he checks back. I don't think he's going to have as many, as we mentioned before, King X's and 10 X's in his range. His check back range is going to include a lot more Deuce X and 9 X's. So he's going to be folding a lot to our limp stabs. I ended up putting out a slightly bigger sizing than usual, 30 chips into 40. I like to do this a lot when I have backdoor flush draws on board textures like this. So just in case he does call, I can put a lot more pressure on his calling range. Since his calling range is going to include a lot of weak hands. It's going to have a lot of weak 10x's and weak and 7x's and stuff like that that I can possibly barrel off of him and make him basically fold to a lot of good barrels on the turn and river.
Yep. And he's going to float here sometimes, but like we are going to be able to apply a lot of pressure. His range is going to be, I think, overly capped at the moment. Obviously, you can backdoor straights or flushes or stuff, but I definitely think bigger sizing to set up the appeal of that there's more bigger sizes to come.
Yeah, that's a very good point that you made. Like versus a reg, it's also very important that we do mix up these sizes a lot because we do expect a reg to be floating a lot versus our limb stabs here because regs they know to maybe even float with even queen high sometimes if we were to put like a 20 chip size. But when you put 30 chips, we just have a lot more fold equity in general.
Mm-hmm.
So, Villain does end up calling the flop, and on the turn, as we mentioned before, I like to basically barrel when I do pick up the flush draw. So I put out this bigger sizing again to put a lot of pressure on his fold on the hands that he probably did float me with on the flop and his 7x and 10x. I could probably get to think about maybe folding to a 3-barrel shove on the river. Also, I definitely get to fold out his weak straight draw that he might have called me on the flop with as well, like 6-9, um, Queen 9 maybe.
Jack 9, stuff like that.
Yeah.
You might fold Jack 9 here, even though it's a double gutter. Yeah, and the other nice thing about the 2 is it doesn't like help or improve any of those weak backdoor hands like that. Like a 2 is kind of a blank, which is good. We're getting him to fold some of these draws and setting up a plan for the river to fold out 7s and 10s.
Yeah, exactly. And also to given the fact that the Zeus doesn't really change much about the board, and it's not really a turn where he would expect me to be barreling that much air, given the
Right.
fact that when he does call, he does know that I know that he has a pretty strong range. So, I not have strong range, but he doesn't have complete air most of the time. So, the fact that like I could kind of get him to maybe even level himself into folding 7x, then as opposed to like if the turn would have been like an ace x or something, I put out the sizing.
Right.
And yeah, when villain calls, I feel like this is a spot where we kind of have to balance out our bluffing range a little bit. It's like when he does call the turn, he is repping a pretty strong range, and that might call us on river. But we have 5 high. We kind of have like the nut low hand here, so we have no chance to win the hand other than a bet. And we can still fold out some hands. There's some hands that he is calling us on the turn with that we can maybe get the fold on the river. So, what are your thoughts, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like we did say, he definitely could have like a Jack 9 or 8-9 for some draws, or even some backdoor diamonds, which will all beat us because we have 5 high. So, I mean, there's definitely, there's not really any hands in his range that are worse than ours. We have kind of the nut worst. So, I definitely think it's a good spot to bet. And I kind of like the bet sizing here of going a little bit, half pot or more, because villains, we're really trying to focus him to fold like the 7s and 10s where we think he'll fold those. And I think if we use too small of a size, we might induce like a hero call from some 7x or 10x. Where if we bet bigger, we could get those to fold. But we don't want to go too big because we do want to, retain as much of our stack as possible. And here we'll have 300 chips if if he does call, and 300 isn't 500 like we started with, but it's definitely better than 250 if we go too big here, or 210 if we go pot, or stuff like that. So I like the size here to keep ourselves at that like 300 chips, so we got 15 big blinds in the event that we get hero called.
Yeah, I like the size here as well since I'm playing my value hands the exact same way. I'm playing my two pairs, my king X, my strong king X's, everything pretty much the same. So having a small bluffing range, I'm not bluffing too often here. There's like probably one of the few runouts I'm actually bluffing here with like five high or whatever, or playing five high like this. So we definitely want to get paid when we're playing versus a reg, when we do have our value hands. But if a reg knows that we're never barreling three streets with air on these board textures, then we kind of become exploitable. So we're not going to get value with a two pair anymore or a top pair because he's going to know that we're kind of nitty. So this is a good hand to kind of balance out our bluffing range, in my opinion. So, and then he does end up folding, so it's kind of good that we definitely did bet here on the river because again, like we were never winning the hand with five high, and as you mentioned before, Chris, we checked here and he showed up with Jack nine here, would have been a disaster.
Yeah.
So